Good Thursday morning, everyone. Welcome to the Volquest.com mailbag podcast presented by our good friends at Exterior Home Solutions. I know a lot of people are dealing with a lot of issues right now based on the storm that came through Knoxville, and certainly our thoughts and prayers are with everyone who's dealing with the damages. But if you are dealing with the unfortunate issue of having weather damage, there's no better people to call than our friends at Exterior Home Solutions. Give them a buzz for a free estimate. They can fix siding, they can do rooftop repair. Whatever your needs are for your exterior home, they're going to take care of you. That is at Exterior Home Solutions, and we certainly thank them for their continued support of the Volquest.com podcast. Be sure and hit the like button on this podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, and we're going to dive into your questions. I'm Brent Hubbs along with Austin Price and Rob Lewis. Guys, we're going to start right out of the gate with Hendersonville 15. What freshman, not named Arian Carter, makes the biggest impact this season for this football team? Austin, I think that's a pretty interesting question based on some of the comments we've heard from assistant coaches over the course of the week, don't you?
I do. I'm going to go Ethan Davis just because I think they're thin at that position, and I think the opportunities will be, there. But I do think you can make a case for a number of different guys, whether that be David Hobbs or Tyree Weathersby, Caleb Herring. I think those are probably the most realistic options on the defense besides Arian Carter.
Rob, when you look at this class, and he said freshmen, so let's take the transfers out, as obviously AP did there. It feels like there's a lot of confidence and belief in this class. Not that they're necessarily going to play and make a big impact, but that they have hit on guys, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. Doesn't it feel that way to you just and watching those guys and hearing coaches talk?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and AP just rattled, a bunch of them off. I mean, that Arian Weathersby, Caleb Herring, the young DBs. I think we're all excited to, see what, Jordan Matthews and what those guys can do. But I mean, I think I totally agree with AP's the answer to the question AP gave. And Hubbard, I think you talked about it last week. Ethan Davis, just because of the need and because of ability. I mean, it's not like if he has to play, it's not like you're playing some stiff. I mean, he looked really good in the spring and stuff we got to see.
All right, I'm going to add my own question into the mailbag podcast here because, well, that's what I'll feel like doing today. It feels like, Austin, on the transfer portal front, Tennessee has hit well. Who makes the biggest impact out of the portal guys? Castles, Peely, Thornton, Omar Norman Lott?
Well, everybody's going to say Dante Thornton because that's the flashy position. But, I kind of tend to lean Omar Norman Lott or McCallum Castles, again, because Rodney plays a big rotation and Castles plays a position of that's not super deep. But, you can't go wrong with any of them. They're all getting really, really high reviews, for their work, for their approach, all that. But again, you guys still got to go put it on paper out on the field come September.
What about you, Rob?
I'm going to say Thornton just looks fantastic, but I'll tell you the most eye-opening comment to me of what have been over there now 7-8 days was Rodney Gardner rolling in there Tuesday. From a coach who does not throw around, does not toss around compliments at all. I mean, just you're not going to say little Johnny's having a good camp just to not hurt little Johnny's feelings. I mean, you guys know. I mean, Coach G is going to lay it down, lay the smack down like he did on Chan Davey and Bradley on Tuesday. But I thought that was eye-opening for him to be that effusive about Norman Lott. That told me a lot. And so I would go Thornton Lott, but man, it would be interesting to look around the SEC. Maybe we can get Matt Ray on this, Hubbard. How many people have plug-and-play start, or how many plug-and-play starters did people get out of the transfer portal? Because what are we looking at with Tennessee? 5?
Yeah, I mean, the guy I would put at the top of that list, in my opinion, is Keenan Peely, because I think he's the guy guaranteed to start at this point at the inside linebacker spot. Now, Castle's going to play a huge role. I think Thornton starts. Norman Lott's going to play there, but I mean, I think Peely, who's on the leadership council, I think he's going to be a lock starter at the inside linebacker position. I think he may be the most impactful guy that Tennessee has in there. The bottom line is it feels like, and again, Austin, you said it best, We'll see what the results are coming out of the scrimmage. We'll see where they are in another 10 days or so. But it feels like Tennessee's hit pretty well on their portal transfer guys.
Well, correct. And to go back to the original question about the freshmen, I said this on Josh and Swain on Wednesday. I honestly believe when you look back 5-6 years from now, this current class has a chance to be one of the most successful recruiting classes in Tennessee in the last 25 or 30 years.
Ooh.
Like I said there, well, and I say this because I've sat here and went back and looked at like the last 15 years and just how bad the hit rate was on a bunch of them. And I think that, there's enough chatter and talk, and this isn't just like talking points during fall camp. Like these guys physically look much better and much more prepared to play college football coming in than so many other classes have in the last 15 years.
Yeah, you're right. I agree with you. By the way, one transfer I forgot to mention, John Campbell is going to be the starting left tackle for Tennessee on the offensive line. I mean,
and your kicker
it feels like it's a hit,
And I'm telling you,
your kicker.
Yeah.
He may not start, but I guarantee you he plays a ton, and that's Gabe Judy Lally.
Yeah,
another one.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like the portal was good for Tennessee. Now, again, we'll see moving forward, but there is a lot of positive juice about the portal guys right now. All right, let's roll on here with mailbag questions. We go to Glock Vols. Do you think having Campbell, Spraggs, and Cooper, that it could help mask some of the holes we have on the offensive line, along with the tempo helping?
I think the scheme helps. I think the tempo can help. The fact that if they can keep Cooper healthy, I think that the pacing and everything that he brings is huge. But like John Campbell's not Darnell. Now he's playing the left versus Darnell's playing the right. They're just different type of players. Darnell was girthy, and John Campbell is not nearly as big as Darnell. It ain't even close, really. And so like I know somebody said, well, this is just talking points. Well, if it's talking points from everybody over there. Like it's not like it's a made up thing by a couple of people that cover the team. And so when I look at left guard, I just think that, who knows? I mean, spin the roulette wheel and see where the ball lands. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do there. Could be 5 or 6 different guys. And then right tackle, I mean, if I think if they're starting the game today, I think they'd try to push Mincy over there. But, if not, it'll probably be J.J. Crawford.
Rob, bigger concern for you, left guard or right tackle? Bigger question maybe is the better way to say that instead of concern.
I might say left guard just because, I know Ollie's played, but, whoever – and right, it's going to be a different position for Crawford or Mincy, but those guys have started a lot of games. Left guard, I just feel like you're going to have less experience there. And again, I know Ollie's been in the program forever and has made some starts, but I would just go left guard.
Yeah, I think that feels like the case for me right now is a little bit of proving at left guard. And Ollie Lane suddenly finding himself getting quite a bit of reps at center too. You wonder if that, what that looks like in terms of, his workload and how they manage him through the rest of fall camp. We'll get a much better idea of kind of direction some things are going on the offensive line following the scrimmage that takes place later today. Glenn Ellerby made that very clear in his conversation with the media earlier this week. All right, this is for you, AP. Banjo Vol 2024 shaping up to be a stellar class. If we reach 10 wins again this year, could the class of 25 be truly elite? I'm going to ask it a little bit differently. I know I've asked that question. Wins a big factor, not a huge factor in recruiting. Where do you put that?
I think that it matters. I think the more you can stack, 10-win seasons, it matters. I still think you got to, I don't think kids are going, well, they won 10 2 years in a row. I'm definitely going to go to Tennessee. I think you might see that with, Georgia right now because they won back-to-back national titles and Alabama's won, half dozen under Nick. But like, I think, it's just different. Like it takes a while to get there. Like I know Tennessee fans don't understand that, but the recruiting base here and the recruiting base in Georgia is two different things. Like, and so, it's just different. And so I think that there's some different avenues, but I think the biggest thing you got to look at here, like look at the rest of this class. I think this class is really good. Currently, they're ranked 6th, 7th, depending on the day, depending on who's committing. Let's say they add a Koye and maybe one more highly profile guy. You're going to be in the top 10 at that point, in my opinion. What's it take to get to the top 5? I don't think it matters, because I think when I look at last year's class, it was just outside the top 10. And I'm sitting here saying that I think when you look back 5 or 6 years from now, it has a chance to be one of the best classes in the last, 30 years, just as far as like guys they hit on the hit rate. And so I think that's most important. And I think the one thing you can't forget about too is technically any of these transfers count towards the class too, when you look at like committed lists. So like Dante Thornton and all these guys you just named, like a year from now, what's that look like, with the class? Are they still landing mostly 4 and 5 star guys? Very few 3 stars. There's going to be a few in every class, but mostly 4 and 5 star guys, and then hitting on the right type of transfers. If you're doing that, then you're progressing as a program.
Yeah, well, and again, you're exactly right. And Rob, it also gets back to who you're beating out for some guys. And some guys we're talking about here, you're beating out David Hobbs. Who'd you beat out for?
Georgia and Alabama.
Arian Carter.
Arian Carter. I mean, that's where you're at. I mean, to get there, you got to stack wins over those guys in recruiting. Tennessee did that a year ago. We'll see what that class looks like coming out in 24.
It's not like Butch beating West Virginia and Maryland out for a Florida 4-star.
Yeah, I mean, it's different. I mean, it's a little bit of who you beat. I mean, and that's not a knock on the rankings, and that's not a knock on Butch. It's different, when you're beating out somebody straight up against the people you're chasing in this league year in and year out.
Hey, I figured out what Rob's nickname is. I'm going to start calling him Mrs. Potts from Beauty and the Beast. Tale as old as time. Rob's bashing on Butch.
Let's go to Vol Foe. We know our opponents we know who our opponents are going to be for 2024, but don't have dates yet for SEC games. Any idea when that's going to be announced?
This fall.
Yeah, that'll be a mid-fall type announcement, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, now they could push that though, because it's been mid-fall for several years, but with Oklahoma and Texas coming in the league and them doing some stuff, like they may want to make it a TV event, not in season. Now, again, we'll see, but I think either way, it's a midweek Tuesday, Wednesday TV special when they announce, the schedule.
Yes, yeah, I agree with you that it's going to go that way, and sooner rather than later, so everybody can start doing their planning. So I would imagine that's going to come out sometime this fall. Green Vol, Rob, to you, if Tennessee goes 7-5, how big of a setback would that be for Tennessee?
I don't know. I mean, I guess you mean recruiting or what? I mean, I think it would be a horrible year, and I'm not sure how big of a setback that would be on the trail. I mean, I don't think you'd have a massive amount of decommitments or anything, depending on what it looked like. I mean, did you have injuries here and there? I mean, I think it would be a huge letdown after last year. Setback, does that mean Josh can't get it done? I wouldn't go that far. I mean, to see what the circumstances were, but man, that would be driving this thing in the ditch the way the fan base feels right now, wouldn't it?
Yes, I agree with Rob 100%. Like 7-5 means some things that went drastically wrong.
Yeah, well, you've had a bunch of injuries, or some guys didn't. The quarterback play. Joe Milton didn't play the way you thought Joe Milton was going to play, or your offensive line didn't come together. I mean, all of those things could factor in. When you look at the schedule, we're looking at where it's at. It's all going to go back to those swing games we talked about. What do you do at Florida to open SEC play, right? And then you've got the A&M swing game in Knoxville. You've got Kentucky out there as well. Those are going to hinge and say a lot about the direction and kind of what happens this season with this football team. In my opinion, I think it's hard to go to Alabama and win. I think Georgia's going to be really good. I know a lot of people are talking about Tennessee and Georgia and Knoxville, but I think Georgia's in a true reload mode. I really do. I don't think that they're going to take any kind of real step back at all in Athens. So we'll see, how Tennessee plays and how it goes moving forward. That's the fun part of following this thing. Fort Loudon Vol wants to know, for everyone, with all the conference realignment occurring, if you could pick any 2 teams to join the SEC, who would you add?
Well, before, when they were still doing divisions, I would have told you like Virginia Tech and NC State or some team from North Carolina, so we could get Missouri shoved to the west, so we'd have to quit going and making that trip. But we're now don't have to do that every other year now. So, I still think keeping it, regional is important. So I still think this still stays the same, either a Florida State or a Clemson or one of the North Carolina schools or one of the Virginia schools. I think if you can keep it regional, like, can you imagine Hubs like trying to cover the team if you were trying to cover Oregon? You have one game you can drive to. The LA trips are a 2.5-hour flight or whatever it is, and then everything else is a 3 or 4 hour flight. With some of those places being hard to get into from a standpoint, you're gonna have to connect. You're not getting direct flights, so like that just sounds like a nightmare. We're very fortunate in this league to be able to drive to most of the conference.
Hubbard, don't you think? I go back to when I was a kid when Arkansas and South Carolina came in. I always thought Florida State and Clemson made perfect sense. I mean, as long as I can remember, being a football fan, that they would slide right in. Now, as far as eyeballs and TV ratings and everything, that probably doesn't add a lot, to what you've got here. But just culturally, I think Clemson has probably always been an SEC school spiritually.
Yeah, I think, when you look at those two schools from a football standpoint, that's absolutely the case. I don't think the SEC is in any kind of real desire to make a move. If Notre Dame picked up the phone and called and said, hey, we're looking for a conference, then I think Greg Sankey would say, all right, come on, we'll find somebody to pair up to keep it even. But I don't know how much else that they're looking for anybody. I did think Sankey's comments were pretty interesting about how the SEC doesn't need to be in 3 or 4 time zones for the exposure that he made earlier this week as well. So I just don't think that they are that the SEC is looking to jump and react to what everybody else is doing right now. And I think you wonder a little bit about what the eyeballs, how important those eyeballs are or they aren't with the way, streaming's changing everything and all that kind of stuff, what those footprints ultimately look like. So I don't know that the SEC is going to be in any kind of hurry, but I'm with you guys. Clemson, Florida State feel like SEC type schools, but I don't think there's anything happening there anytime soon, despite some of the stuff that's been thrown out there.
Don't you think though that this is likely headed towards 3 though, or well, I guess keeping it at 4? Like is the ACC really going to go belly up like the Pac-12 did? I think the Pac-12 will be cause enough of a panic in the ACC, and obviously the Big 12 is countered with their run on teams, that you don't see them fall by the wayside. Like the Pac-12, it's gone.
The thing that led to the Pac-12's demise is a lack of TV deal, and the ACC's got a TV package. They've got a good TV package. Got the ACC network now. Is it as much as the Big Ten or the SEC? No. And I get where Florida State and Clemson are clamoring because they're carrying financially. They're carrying the load for that conference because football drives the train. The basketball stuff in that conference is not yielding as much media rights and TV money as football is going to yield, Rob. But as long as that TV deal's in place, they're getting enough money that they can complain about not getting as much as everybody else, but it's going to be hard I don't see that conference just falling by the wayside unless that TV deal in whatever year that thing comes due doesn't move in the right direction that they want to move, because that's what drove the Pac-12 out the door.
And don't they? I'm not an expert on this by any means, but I'm following and interested in it. Isn't their buyout like $120 million a piece?
Silly. Yeah.
For university. They're not going anywhere.
No,
they can make all the noise they want to.
It's somebody put out that Florida State might explore private equity to fund that to get out. Nobody's turning their athletic department over to a private equity fund who's all about profit loss. You think Olympic sports are interested in a private equity fund looking at their P&L statement? I think there's real challenges there. So and again, I don't know that everybody's lining up to take one of those schools either. How much money would they bring to the table as a conference school that you would want to divide your TV pie yet again? Right? What
if the Saudi Arabia backed PIF? I'm not joking. This was an idea brought to me by one of the people I know who at the time said this is what the Pac-12 should do. They should counter with turning it over to the PIF, and because they're always trying to buy in and get into these areas like they have with Live Golf and so on and so forth. would you like to own a chunk of the pie? And all of a sudden now you have the PIF funding NIL all through the Pac-12, or not Pac-12, but the Pac-12. And
never happened. Federal money for the universities never happened.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. I just don't think anybody's going to let an outside source come in and start dictating stuff that they're doing in terms of where they're spending their money in their athletic department. But I don't think the SEC is moving anytime soon in terms of adding teams. Again, unless Notre Dame wanted to go somewhere, and I don't think that's going to be the case with where they're at right now. TDTN 1977. Through the first week and couple of days of fall camp, who are your starters in the secondary? Who's your starting five on the offensive line? I got you like 20 minutes into this thing before we got into that question. All right, let's go.
Secondary, I'll go Haddon, Danico Slaughter. I'll go T-Mac for now at nickel, and then I'll go McCullough and Walker at safety.
I mean, just based off what we've seen, I don't have anything to add to that. I mean, I'll just be very interested to see if that stays static.
Yeah, I'm going to be fascinated to see where they are at nickel if T-Mac misses more time, because he's been limited with that injury that he's dealing with, that muscle pull. How does that affect what the star position looks like? Because somebody's going to get some real run in this scrimmage and get an opportunity to show themselves. Is that Gabe Judy-Lawley? Is that Warren Burrell? What does that look like at the star position? On the offensive front, if they're playing a game today, it's Cooper at center for me. It's Spraggins at guard. It's Ollie Lane at guard. It's John Campbell at left tackle. And I'm going to take J.J. Crawford at right tackle. That's my starting five on the offensive line if they were playing today. I think that's how they open up for game one, unless something crazy happens here over the next couple of weeks in fall camp.
Who's behind McCullough, and is he legit getting pushed? I mean, what do we think?
Jordan Thomas, AP, would that be the safety behind? Is it Andre Turrentine? Where do you think they are behind McCullough at safety right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's those two. And then again, if they found an answer at star and allowed T-Mac to roll back to safety, I think that's obviously an option too. There's a couple of different options.
Yeah. So we'll see what that looks like coming out of these scrimmages here over the course of the next week and a half, something like that. Swagger 12, do you think Wingo could actually pick Missouri, AP? And who do you think Tennessee has the best chance of getting? Williams, Winery, or Franklin? Name two recruits Tennessee has the best chance to flip. I've asked you multiple questions. I want you to answer them separately.
Right now I would say neither. Like as far as Winery or Franklin,
okay.
I think Tennessee. If you said who's the best chances with Winery, and I don't know how great that chance is. The other one, flipping Cam Fountain would be one, and then I would probably look at Maris Williams, who's committed to Florida.
All right, we got more of your recruiting questions, more football questions, more basketball questions coming up as we continue here on the Mailbag Podcast. But first, a message from our good friends at Exterior Home Solutions.
Life happens, and damage to your home can be extremely stressful. That's why it's important to find someone who offers efficient, quality work with financing options. Exterior Home Solutions, they value not only family, but community. And they're who I call when life happens. You should too.
Again, thanks to our good friends at Exterior Home Solutions for all of your needs around the house. Check them out at Exterior Home Solutions. They're online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. All right, back to the questions we go. Vol for Life TP, a game of who has more running back catches this year. Are AP putts per round, Slaughter interceptions, or D. Williams return touchdowns, Cam Seldon touchdowns, or Ethan Davis touchdowns? All right, let's start with this, AP. More putts for you in a round or more catches for running backs this year?
Well, I hope it would be catches for running backs, but my putter's been ice cold lately, so it could be the other. What was the second question?
All right, more interceptions for Slaughter or return touchdowns for D. Williams?
I'm going to go return touchdowns for D. Williams.
I'm taking interceptions, Rob Lewis. Last one to you. Cam Seldon touchdowns or Ethan Davis touchdowns? Apparently, he's got internet issues as well. AP, we're going to finish this bad boy out here. So we will go with
Rob's never looked better. He's never looked better.
He's never looked better. Who are you going to take? Who are you going to take here? It's just you and I, man. I mean, we could talk forever. It's no big deal. Are you taking Ethan Davis or Cam Seldon?
I'm going to take Cam Seldon because I think he can score enough touchdowns and mop up duty.
All right. Yeah, I think you're probably right on that one. I don't disagree with that notion. Let's see here. Orange Truth. How disappointing for the staff is it to lose in-state kids you recruit multiple years only to have Bama or Clemson offer in the spring of their senior year and land them? Being two examples of that, Amari Jefferson and Ronan O'Connell.
I mean, it's never fun, but at the same time, I mean, this is not some kind of new deal. I mean, I outlined it, on I think in a podcast here recently, but I can go back over it really quick here. In 2016, Tennessee landed 2 of 11 4 stars or better. 17, 4 of 13. 18, 3 of 11. 19, 2 of 13. 20 is the outlier, 5 of 9. That was the Big O, Bryson Eason, that group. Tyler Barron, Cooper Mays. 21, 1 of 9. 22 with the investigation stuff overhanging you, 0 for 13. 2 of 8 in 23. And 4 of 10 in 24. So, it's, again, you go back and look at it and you go, well, that kid never played at that school. That wasn't a miss for Tennessee. You can look at several of those. Even the ones last year when Tennessee was, 2 for 8, there were probably 3 of those or two or 3 of those that were quarterbacks. Well, you weren't going to recruit a couple of those kids because why? You had Nico.
Right.
So, it happens quite frequently, just like Tennessee's able to pluck high-end guys out of other states. It just kind of is what it is. Again, got to worry about the ones you get, not the ones you lose. But, the only ones that you feel are when the ones make plays. When T. Higgins and Amari Rogers made plays, you felt it. When Randall Cobb made plays, you felt it. When, Jacob Phillips and Jacoby Stevens are winning a national championship at LSU and making plays, you felt it. You didn't feel it when a bunch of these other guys go to, these other schools and you don't see it.
Yeah. All right. Rob Lewis, Quell Vol to you. If Sakai is healthy for game 1 of the season, does he start, come off the bench, and a spark plug role like he has before? How do they manage Sakai?
I mean, if he's healthy, he'll start, but I don't know that he's going to be 100% the first week in November. But when he's 100%, he's Tennessee's starting point guard.
How careful are they going to be with him pre-conference?
Kid gloves. Really? I mean, it's going to be hard to hold him back. I mean, you guys. I mean, you've been around him. He's definitely one of those that you have to say whoa and not sick him. So I mean, that's going to be. I mean, and Tennessee will stay on top of it, but I think that's going to be their biggest challenge is managing, his desire to push himself maybe beyond what he should. And he's not that he'll do anything silly, but I mean, he is banging his head to get back. So as soon as he's healthy, as soon as he's 100%, he's Tennessee's starter.
All right. Vols 10-24. What type of NFL draft pick does Cooper Mays project to be? Would he be open to coming back if he grades out as a back end of the draft, undrafted free agent guy, AP?
Well, I mean, you got to think Cade went in the 6th round. His signing bonus was $1 million. That year. Cooper's not going to get $1 million in NIL. So, I mean, if you think you can be drafted, if they project you as a guy that can be drafted, I mean, I think you have to have a hard look at it. Now, if they're saying most likely undrafted free agent, that's when I probably would potentially entertain coming back because you can make more money in NIL potentially because of what his importance is to the offense, what his importance is to the overall deal. But Cooper, as we talked about, was extremely close with older guys. He was extremely close with obviously with Cade, but even last year he was really tight with Darnell, really tight with Jerome Carvin. Those guys aren't here anymore. And so, does he find somebody else to kind of, be the peanut butter to his jelly, and kind of be buddies with? I think that goes a long way to any kind of door opening to a potential another year for Cooper Mates, but I would definitely lean to him not being back.
I Heart Vols. Which happens first? NCAA athletes unionized. The SEC and the Big Ten break from the NCAA. Vanderbilt's asked to find a new conference. I don't see student athletes unionizing because of the turnover, Rob, every 3 or 4 years. I don't see how that model works with that kind of turnover.
That's I agree with you, Hubbard, and because of that point, I mean, so if you're a one and done college basketball player, I mean, how interested are you in doing that? I just think there's so much disparity. And again, I don't want to get sidetracked, but there's so much disparity. What's a girls soccer player got in common with Nico, as far as what they're from the NIL perspective and all that. I just think there's so much disparity in the needs of the athletes. So I don't know about just the SEC and Big Ten, but I think that a group of the powerhouse is going to break away. I would definitely take that one.
Yeah, I thought Chip Kelly's comments earlier this week were pretty interesting, where he said basically, why could you not do essentially 64 Power 5 teams, and that's major college football, and then you do 64 non-Power 5 teams, and they go and play, and the big boys go and play, and then your other sports stay in the conferences they've currently been in from a regional standpoint. Like, why is that not even? I mean, is that where we ultimately end up going? Is the question.
I mean, that's what I said something simple on the podcast earlier this week. I mean, when we're talking about the Oregon softball team going to Rutgers, why can't your non-revenue or your Olympic sports stay where they are? Pac-12 swimming and diving championships, stay like it is. That to me, and you've seen, I normally am not a huge Eli Drinkwitz fan, but I thought he was pretty eloquent on that topic this week as well.
All right, Austin, to you, Stump Jumper wants to know, when's the last time we had such good competition across the board at so many positions? Rob, you can jump in here too, but AP, go first.
I mean, I think it's probably early 2000s hubs. I mean, as far as just all across the boards. I mean, there were some position groups that I think were pretty good when Butch was here. But I think you probably have to go back to the mid 2000s.
Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, and I think we'd all agree that lack of competition has, in the last recent past, has led to some guys getting comfortable.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I mean, it's fun to watch. I mean, you look at that running back room, and that the competition in that group's only getting more intense, in my opinion, when you see some of these young guys developing. And I think Jalen Wright's taken on a whole different role with this team in general. I think he's become more vocal. I think he's as confident as he's ever been. We've talked about linebackers. They got a bunch of bodies up front on the defensive line. This is a team. 2 years ago they were struggling to field a team in some regards at some positions. So it's very different than it's been, and it's been a while since it's felt like this. My favorite screen name, I miss Denarius Moore. Besides Dobbs and Kamara, who from a Jones team do you wish you could see in Heupel's system?
I think Josh Malone, because he can run. Defensively,
Derek Barnett. But that doesn't.
He was going to be good in anybody's system.
Yeah.
I think about it more offensively. I think Alvin would have been interesting to see kind of what all they could do with him, and I think this run game scheme would have worked really well with Alvin, for sure. I mean, I think that would have been, fairly intriguing, and I think Josh Malone in the slot would have had a pretty good field day in this offense.
Yeah, I go back to the Dooley teams. I mean, Hunter Rogers, CP, even Michael Rivera, I think would have been.
Or DeRick, if you could have kept him in school.
Yeah.
Who's still, one of the most talented guys I've seen over there.
One of the greatest Golden Eagles of all time, baby.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of good offensive players who've come through here who would have thrived in this system, particularly guys who could play out on the perimeter, out wide. All right, last question, and we're out the door. This is for you, Austin. This is the Athron's recruiting trifecta, he's got a foursome in here for you. All right, thoughts on Williams Winery a week out?
I think Tennessee's still talking to him a bunch. I still think all those teams are. He's not turned the phone off on anybody. I would probably take Missouri just because of the NIL dynamic.
Yeah, the dynamic there, he can make money now going to Missouri. Is that or make money as soon as he signs with Missouri? What's the dynamic? Explain that with the people as best you understand it.
Well, again, like I thought I understood it one way, and then I'm like, no, it's the opposite. Like, basically, I think that he can make money now, and at least I believe that's what his interpretation of this is.
Is it that if you sign with an in-state school, if that's coming from an in-state collective, though?
That's correct.
That's that.
So
I mean, it's
he can't. Now, can he sign a financial aid agreement which locks Missouri to him and allow him to start getting paid by the NIL collective? That's my question.
Yeah. So those are some things, and that's why Missouri continues to pop up with those two, with Wingo and with Williams, because a lot of people feel like they've got a real advantage with the NIL law that they have in their state, which is certainly up for interpretation by a lot of different people out there.
Yeah.
What are you hearing on the offensive lineman Seaton?
Jordan Seaton. He had his people reach out to Tennessee, reach out to South Carolina. Certainly sounds like, he's taking another look around here as we head into fall.
All right. Can you see Keith becoming more like an H-back and take the Princeton Fant role? I don't see that body type. I don't see him being that type of player.
They're not the same type player. Not the same type body type. Khalifa Keith is a bowling ball who can run, though, and is physically different than just about anybody in that room.
Yeah, I mean, he was not afraid of the contact when we saw that blitz pickup one-on-one drill. AP, he wasn't catching blitz defenders coming his way. He was kind of attacking and going at some of those guys. He seemed to kind of relish that opportunity in that drill. He seemed very comfortable for a young guy. He seemed to have some comfort level with the pickup stuff and the protection stuff. Not that he knew the scheme. I'm just saying how to do that. It looked like he has either worked on that on his own or that's something he did in high school, which you normally don't see a lot of.
100%.
Which is kind of unusual. And then the last one to UAP, Chris Cole, thoughts on his announcement date set. What does that mean? Where's Tennessee? You had the note on Wednesday on the message board about him right now. Looks like Tennessee's going to get a shot at him before an announcement. Is that
going to go to Southern Cal the weekend of the 2nd. And then as of now, looks like he will take an official visit to Tennessee for that first home game against Austin Peay, and then he'll commit on the 10th. So if he gets to that point, you'd have to think Tennessee's got a shot there. I mean, he's literally going to come down here the weekend that he commits. So it doesn't lock him into coming here for sure, but you'd think that he's still fairly open to Tennessee and the possibility of Tennessee if that's the case. And
everybody's still chasing Georgia. That's the school that everybody's been chasing. Is that fair?
Certainly feels that way. Yeah, certainly feels like, Georgia, Tennessee are the top two teams in my opinion. Then, we'll see if Southern Cal gets any traction here as we head to the first week of games.
All right, that's going to do it for all the mailbag questions. We appreciate you guys jumping in there and asking those this week. Don't forget, we've got full coverage of Josh Heupel's reaction to the scrimmage coming up later today. We got the War Room on Friday. We'll do 10 things I think. We'll get that started. We've got full practice coverage all weekend long for Tennessee. Plenty of other feature articles. Matt's got a bunch of recruiting stuff coming up this weekend as well. Lots of things going on. There's no better time to check us out. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Jump on over to Volquest.com. Go ahead and jump in and become a part of the Volquest family, and don't miss out on anything that's going on in Tennessee athletics, particularly right now with Tennessee football, but we got basketball coverage as well. Eric's following the baseball thing. Lots of stuff going on right now at Volquest.com. But that's going to do it for this edition of the Mailbag Podcast, presented by our good friends at Exterior Home Solutions. For Rob Lewis and Austin Price and Brent Hubbs, thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your Thursday, everybody.